Hi, I'm Bonnie McDonald Dixon, and this is my dear friend Ann Crawford. And Ann is a career coach, and I am a miracle ready coach. And together we're the dynamic duo, and we love helping people just if you're in the middle of a career choice or change or just trying to figure it all out because we all go through this. The average is like 4 or 5 career changes in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I've had many more. I have a portfolio career. Anne's is much more structured. She's been doing what she's been doing for how many years now, Anne?
18 years. Boy,
That
time
is
flies.
amazing. And the lives that she's been able to change by just being giving people perspective, just a new perspective. So we have a little bit of a talk for you today. If you or someone you know is ready and wondering and needs to bounce off of some people, this is what we do. And so today we're going to just talk a little bit here, some topics that will probably resonate with you if you're in that place. And our question to you is, what is your plan B for 2023?
That's a good one.
And again, Anne is a career transition coach for over 17 years, and she does have a process. And so some of us are willy-nilly just going, what do we do? What do we do? But Anne actually has a process to you through that. And she's specializing in with military personnel returning
Yeah.
to civilian life. Can you just share a minute about that, Anne, of what it's like to go from something like the military into regular civilian life?
Oh boy. Some military people it's a pretty easy transition, but I'll be honest with you, the ones that I've worked with, their days are so structured. So you and I wake up and we decide, well, we'll wear our black sweaters and we'll go out and get a cup of coffee and we'll go talk to somebody. Their day starts at a certain time. They wear a uniform every day. They go to the base. They know who they're talking to, why they're talking to, what their mission is. They don't really think outside the box because that would create unsafe environments. They are trained for survival. And
Mhm,
then the day just starts over and over again. And think about this, when you do this for so many years, you gain incredible tasks. You are great in leadership. You're structured, you're on time, you're organized, which is awesome. And that's really important when transitioning out. But then we talk about the civilian culture, and we're so laid back. I mean, really, and they're not. So it's very difficult for them to get into a civilian workplace that has the same structure, ethics that they experience in the military. And that's where trouble lies.
mhm,
Or what they did in the military doesn't translate to any job in the civilian world. So we changed it up a little bit, as you know, because you wrote a phenomenal book. It's really about learning about yourself first and then moving your career, whether it's military or civilian, forward and finding out
mhm,
what you like through
mhm.
that.
Couldn't agree
Yeah.
with you more. I actually was a postal carrier on a military base,
Mm.
and, we as civilians can't even imagine that someone says to you, "You're gonna get up and move next week," and move
Yeah.
you to an entirely different area with your family and everything. It's,
Tough.
very structured, and, yes, in civilian life, people will tell you to do things, but to upend your entire life, that doesn't usually happen. So there definitely, is a transition there that we can't even imagine it unless we've walked a mile in their shoes. And that's your
Yeah,
specialty, and I
that's
love that
true.
about you, that you're able to help people with
Thank
that.
you. I feel like it.
Yeah.
Thank
And so we're gonna move on here to me for just a moment because we're the dynamic duo.
Please do. Here's
And,
to everybody, the star of the show. So let her tell you about herself.
well, I've had a portfolio career I'm a lifelong health advocate. Even when I was 16, I told my mom, let's throw out the flour, the white flour and sugar. And she said, what are you talking about? This was, you know, 55 years ago. And I am a miracle ready coach. And I tell you, every day we have miracles happening all around us.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't even notice, and I help you notice those things.
Yeah.
Co host on Storyvan TV, and I'm an author of How to Get a Job You Love. And that one came up because I was actually caretaking a former partner, and I actually had my career had stopped because of that. And I wrote what I know, which is I can get a job anytime, anywhere. And I want to
Mhm.
teach you that too, that there's opportunities and miracles happening all around you every single day. And change one belief. My story in there was the perfect job. So here we are talking about perfect jobs because every job you've ever had is the perfect job because we can learn from that.
Mhm.
I do speaking and then I'm a horse and coffee lover. And I'm holding space for people to become healthy, wealthy campers. And that is my website that we have, thehealthywealthycamper.com. Love to talk to you on that one.
Mhm.
So, here, Anne, let's talk about when people think they don't have the money or time if they don't change their life. What can you say about that?
I don't think in the beginning you need a lot of money. I mean, our mind is constantly going and we're not filling it with coins and making huge deposits here. So I think, like you in your book, it's thinking outside the box, as they say. That's where it first comes in, doing your research, things like that. It starts, to be honest with you, I just wrote about this. It starts when you're very young
Mhm,
and it transcribes itself throughout your life. So think about the things that you loved when you were little. Bicycle
mhm,
riding, it could have been artwork. You and I both love horses. Now, where did that come from? That started when we were very little. There's
mhm,
something about those wonderful animals that we just absolutely love. It's your hobbies, your photography, your sewing, and things like that. That's where it starts. And those ideas don't really cost a lot of money. So when you're looking for a job and everything, you can sit on your computer and look up many, many jobs and how to do resumes. That doesn't cost you any money. So money shouldn't be something that limits you at all in the beginning
mhm,
process. What do
mhm.
you think about that, Bonnie? What are your
Well, you're
thoughts?
really sparking me because I think as young people, we think we have to do a certain thing, especially if we're told by adults that you should be this or you should be that. Whereas if we just love photography, you know, there are careers in
Mm,
photography. If we love painting, you can create a career out of painting. Now,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think we get stuck sometimes in, well, we've got to make some money, so we better go do this or that.
Right.
And then we start resenting it because really we're earning money so we can be over here instead of doing what we really like to do.
Right.
And I felt always felt myself of I never wanted to work where I was around unhappy people.
Oh,
So
it
I
brings
would
you.
leave a
Yeah.
job if the people around me were really unhappy. For instance, the post office. I
Yeah.
happened to be around a lot of very unhappy people. The job itself was okay. I
Right.
was walking, getting paid to walk and exercise every day. You know, you had a lot of customers. It
Hmm.
could be very intense, of course, around holiday time because there's so much mail. But
Right.
the job itself wasn't a problem, but the people were a problem.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
That's in an outstanding point you just said,
Mhm,
because many of my clients, either they love the people and they hate the job, or they
mhm,
like the job but they hate the people. And I'll be
mhm,
honest with you, there's actually a syndrome, a toxic boss syndrome, where
mm,
he will be so toxic he'll draw his entire team out. So those
mm,
are two incredibly good points that you just brought up, because
mhm.
sometimes it's not what we're doing, it's the people that we surround ourselves with that draw us out of there. So,
Right, right. I I have my own father did work in the post office, and he was very, very unhappy and very cranky all the time because of it. He
yeah,
loved the job, but the people around him just drove him nuts, and
yeah,
the procedures,
yeah.
he could probably have done that job forwards and backwards, but the job he loved so much was the military. He was in the Navy, and I'm sure it
Oh.
was very, very hard work down in the bowels of a ship, stoking the
Mm,
fire for the saline. He was desalination for the water, so they'd have clean water. They have to take the salt out of the water. And but yet that's his favorite memory of his whole life. He's 92 and he loves to
wow.
go back that in his memory of that particular time of his life, that job, the job being a farm boy, that wasn't a big deal. It was the people and the adventure. So, but we can earn money a lot of different ways,
Oh, of
and
course.
it's up to us to then decide if we're going to stick around it. So, some of the things we're talking about today is, are you ready? Are you ready to create your plan B for this 2023? If you are, sometimes what is really important is to, again, know what you like to do. So, we're going to encourage you here in a moment to just think about those things that from years ago. Cooking. I love to cook. Probably could have had a cooking career.
Yes.
Gardening. Oh my gosh, I loved gardening. I loved a lot of things. Painting, not so much.
Yeah.
Photography, I did love. But walking dogs. I have a friend that makes a career out of walking dogs.
Yeah.
Now you think, oh, how could she make money?
Oh,
People pay a lot of money to have their dogs care. They're like children now.
yes.
So she not only did the walking, but now she has 3 walkers underneath her.
Wow.
Can you think of some interesting things that some of your clients have gone to do when they really thought about what they wanted?
Yeah, actually, there's a few of them, but let me use this one man who was in corporate and he was laid off. So we discussed the things that he loves to do that would calm him, and he, just like you said,
Mhm.
gardening and museums. Okay, he
Oh.
he loved the
Mhm.
museums, and I said, "What would you think about volunteering at the museum?" And he goes, "Well, I never thought about that. I love the whole environment. Why not do it?" And I said, "This is a chance for you to get in the door and show them your expertise in a different way, in a very
Mhm.
low key, different way, to be honest with you." So we
Mhm.
did that. Not only was that excellent with knowing that the people that he worked with, so he gained their trust. But then he saw all the things that he could do on the side. And in that museum, they had like outside areas, quiet areas, and so what did he do? He started with the gardening because that's another passion of his. So they
Mhm.
loved his work so much that after like a year and a half, now in between time, I have to say that he picked up part-time jobs until he thought he was going to go back to corporate. But once he worked and volunteered at the museum and then did the outside gardening, he was
Mhm.
really almost repelled to even think about going back to corporate world. It was too
Mhm.
structured. It didn't ignite creative thinking in him like he really, really loved. So at the
Mhm.
end, they offered him a position because once again, a museum is a business.
Mhm.
So there he goes. He just filters right in. It wasn't the same job title, but it had many of the similar components. And they
Mhm.
said, you can keep, if you want, you can keep being our gardener or help our master gardener here if you care
Mhm.
to. And sure enough, he did. And he became good friends with him. And then you know how it goes, Bonnie,
Mhm.
with the
Mhm.
networking. It was, well, I get my flowers here, and this is where we plant
Mhm.
there, and come volunteer for the Audubon Society, and he was
Mhm.
in his glory, and he never thought the correlation would be to blend it into something that he really had a good hobby or passion for.
Mhm.
So that's wonderful.
That is an incredible story, about someone that has really utilized their talents, and because of his corporate job, though, he probably had some skills that he was able
Yeah,
to bring into everything he did. So again, back to
absolutely.
my perfect job story. Whatever you're doing, do it with all your heart.
Right.
even if maybe you don't like it, just learn it because those skills are transferable to
That's right.
another, area of your life. And what you also shared, Anne, there's a saying, your net worth is your network, or vice versa. So if you start meeting people doing what you like to do or aspire to
Right.
do, and literally say, can you help me? And
Right.
ask, people will be willing and bend over backwards to help you get what you want if you show interest. And
Absolutely.
it's just a great way. I volunteered on my days off at the post office at a health food store because I wanted to learn that business. And in doing so, after about a year, so that's a lot of days, 50 days, that's like a month's worth of work.
Yes. That's a
I
lot.
had so much fun. I really knew it. I was ready to go buy my health food store, and the market collapsed during the Gulf War times.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the funds to open my health food store. So the woman that I was working for, her name was Cheryl Hughes. She's still in business, 45 years later, um, in Lancaster, California. She said, come and be my general manager. You already know everything. I had
See?
literally learned the job on the job, and I stepped in as the general manager, not as a cashier, not as someone that stocked the shelves. I knew it all. So therefore, she just hired me right in, and it
Yeah.
was a drop in pay. I was never so happy in my life.
That's true. That
I
is
mean,
true.
I'm telling you, I had a jolly good time. So um, it can lead us places. And then from there, I bounced on into the sales end of it, and I increased my income. Even though I dropped my income originally, when I then bounced into the sales end of it, I doubled and tripled what I made at the post office. So we have to sometimes be willing to not make what we think we should get or
Right.
deserve, but what we truly give and our value is. So the value of all these things, even in your hobbies, is valuable to a job, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I
Uh-huh.
had one client that he was a mechanic. I mean, high end mechanic. We're not talking about just mom and pop, but he was
Mhm.
making big bucks. But his body was crumbling because of all the bending over, and he was
Mhm.
just kind of burnt out. But his passion, seeing the dog walker, was dogs. And I
Mhm.
told him, I said, can't you combine the two? He couldn't get the connection. I said, Subaru is passionate about dog adoptions. And you
Mm.
think of working for Subaru, which is your car, your passion, you knew how to do everything, and build or inspire them to do dog transportation vehicles because they did adoption across the United States all the time. And he
Mhm.
had never thought about that. So here he got his car fix and his doggy fix, and he got involved in the dog adoption program.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
whenever those vehicles would show up, he'd be like, "Oh, this is I designed that crate and this and that, and oh, this is great." That's how it works, everybody. So yeah,
That's the miracle of it, is it's not all or nothing, it's all in something. And to be
yes,
able to take those skills as you're learning and going along and apply them to a job because, um, most of us don't realize it, but, we sleep for 8 hours and we work for 8 hours, sometimes
yeah,
10, 12 hours, and, we have a little bit of free time. But what if we do what we love to do? And that others, quote, "You never do, work a day in your life if you do what you love." It doesn't feel like work. So many people, would you agree with this, Anne, who are solopreneurs,
yeah,
they're literally, it's like a 24/7 almost, their work.
right,
And whereas a quote employee, you go to work and you work your 8 hours and you might suffer through it and then you go home.
right.
But that's not really a fun way to live
It is.
necessarily.
It's a very sad existence when you think about it.
Mhm.
It really
Mhm.
is. I
Yeah.
mean, one
Yeah.
thing if you enjoy your job and then you disconnect and you go home and you do other things, that's a whole different ball game. But most people don't. So they bring that sadness and depression. I can just picture your father at the end of the day going, I'm going to see that jerk Harry at the post office tomorrow. He just gets under my skin. I can't
He
take
did.
it. And he brings that home to dinner. He
Oh,
brings it into
absolutely.
bed. He brings it into the
Absolutely.
good morning coffee. And he's like,
Yeah.
ugh. And Monday morning he dreads. And that's
Right.
very sad. It's very
It
sad.
it 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 broke my heart for him. Now he retired from the post office and he had a trucking job. For 28 years, he worked 2 jobs simultaneously. And, it was very intense because he had 5 kids, and, you gotta do what you gotta do, but at the same time, he didn't realize he had choices, and that's what I think our joy here is to let people know, no,
Yeah.
you really do have choices. You really do have choices. And if anybody's telling you you don't, it's only yourself. And even if you're
Right.
working your full time job
Hmm.
and your part time joy, if you create that as a little business, it can often transfer over. Um, interesting,
Absolutely.
yeah, interesting story on this one. My former partner was a veterinarian. And I didn't know this about veterinarians, but they have a very high suicide rate. It's a very intense job for people as a business. So this one veterinarian, my former husband's knew, literally went and opened an ice cream stand in the summers, and he ended up making more money in 4 months than he did in entire year as a veterinarian.
Right, right.
And
There you
he just
go.
liked doing, you know, who knows, where it can
I'm
take
all
you.
for
So
that.
I know. So I think what Anne brings to the table and I bring to the table is let's open the door to miracles that can happen, to experiences
Hmm.
that you can have. This is your one life that we know of. And
Right.
to open those doors and say, how will my life be different if I actually earn money doing what I love to do? How juicy would that be for you?
Yeah.
And sometimes it becomes a family affair, doesn't it, Anne?
It can.
Mhm,
Absolutely. It sure can. It can.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So let's see what we have here, a little bit more here we have. Okay, so volunteering was one of the things that we talked
That.
about. That's a lot of fun. And here's again, this is the juicy part of what you need to do, and you have a process. So these are some of the action steps. Would you, elaborate on those a little bit?
Yeah, the investigation. That I tell people this should be the fun part. It's just like looking and trying different ideas and stuff. So let's take the camera person, the photographer. All right, I had one. So I'll explain the whole thing. Other than the camera, and most people thinking I'll just take pictures of weddings or something like that. I'm like, what do you really like to take pictures of? And some were nature, some were still lifes, some were models and stuff like that. And then I said, how do you think you can market your business a little bit more? And that's where the investigative was. I said, think about your day and where you see visual cues of pictures all the time. And sometimes you have to really think about this because you're just not normally familiar with it. So I said, when you go to the doctors, do you ever look at the artwork that's on the walls?
Mhm,
Restaurants. Who has the restaurants? Now, my sister has a restaurant and she focuses in every month by putting new talent up on her walls, photographers, artwork from the local
mhm,
areas. Perfect conditions. Lawyers' offices. We all see this
mhm,
coming. Then where do you go to get your camera repaired? The camera shop. That is a phenomenal place that they can market their business and ask the expertise. Because remember, we talked about mentorship,
mhm, mhm,
and people sometimes go in there. If you go in with somebody that you love, let's say the horses, and you go in and you talk to somebody who runs the stable, you might be like, oh, well, I can clean out the stalls and get my horse fixed. The same thing with the camera. I know
Mhm.
many people that went in there and go, "Oh, actually, I need an assistant to go on a camera gig with me. Would you be willing?" Yeah, sure. I'll pay for your boat ride over to Martha's Vineyard if you're going to help me with the setup. Huh, of course. So it's
Mhm.
those kind of things. So by the end of the coaching, he had a place he got new equipment. He learned how to get the equipment at a cheaper rate. He got a mentorship that showed him all different types of how to use this equipment and what types of work there is outside of just doing weddings. He learned where he could walk in and market his business with doctors' offices,
Mhm.
frame shops, and things like that. And he got more outgoing because, like you said, if you don't think about these options that you have or how to break free from those limiting beliefs, you're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
So those are some of
That
the.
that's an incredible example, just incredible how bouncing ideas off someone like yourself will help people see the bigger picture, that they may or from a different perspective that they
Right.
might even see. I love this image here. When I'm doing even a daily, list, I don't do a list, I do circles.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you could do it however you want, but this is a fun way to do it, of put your ideas down and revisit them every now and again, maybe once a year, maybe every quarter. What is it you love doing? Are you doing what you love? How is your life going? And so this investigation of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the reflection, the perspective of self is really important. And I think sometimes as men and women, but I'll say women
More.
of this road they're running down and really hard, and sometimes it's the wife, mother,
Mm-hmm.
daughter, caregiver, all of these things, and they're not able to say, oh, I don't have time to even
Right.
investigate. But that's where I'm going to encourage everyone to say, no, 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 put your oxygen mask on and find out what you really want to do, because again, time flies so quickly sometimes. And if you
Mm-hmm.
go 20 years down the road and you go, "Man, I don't like this," that impacts your health
Right.
and your
It
wealth.
does. Right.
It will affect both. And
Mm-hmm.
so the writing and journaling is so important. And
Yeah.
then
I was going to
finding.
ask you about that because you are the star writer here. So when you were thinking about your book,
Mhm.
did anything stop you? What did you do to keep yourself motivated in that process?
Oh, that's a really interesting story. So, I had never even thought of writing a book, but as my former husband, partner had fallen paralyzed, literally, I was caregiving, and I'd never done that before, and it was full time, and, from morning to night, 24/7, and I didn't have any help, but I would take him to this, clinic where he was getting treatments, if you can believe it, and he did walk again. That's the story behind the story. But um, I met a man, Michael Koss, and he had been in a car accident and became a quadriplegic, and he was totally in a coma and everything. But he had hyperbaric oxygen treatment, and he woke up out of the coma. And out of that, he started his journey, and it's been 17 years. I'm still in contact with him. And by the time I met him 5 years after that, he was starting to walk again without canes. And Michael says to me one day, "Hey, I wrote a book." And I said, "Michael, you wrote a book?" And he goes, "Yes, I did. It's called The Journey to Come Back," because he had to come back from everything, relearn everything. And I said, "How'd you do that?" And he said, "Oh, I typed it with one finger." And I suddenly realized when a person is motivated, when a person wants to do something, they will do it. Now, his
Mm-hmm.
motivation was he has two babies in that car that day. He was in an accident, two twins. And
Wow.
he had motivation behind the scenes to be there for his children. Now, his partner left him, but that didn't stop him. He was every day, he has what they call traumatic brain injury. So when you hear him speak, there's something going on. That doesn't stop him. Nothing stopped him. He was very laser focused of, I'm going to be the best I can be. So he wrote the book. I said, So then he took a class, so I took the same class. And from there, when did I write my book? Because here I am caregiving 24/7, everything, shopping, cleaning, helping. There wasn't much time in the day, but just before my former husband would wake up, I had that quiet time in the morning.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And just before he went to bed, well, I'd put him to bed, and then I'd have a few minutes. And so I would start journaling. And here's the power of journaling. If
Mhm.
you do it about the same time every day, your
Okay.
brain will do a brain dump. And it's kind of like the dog salivating after food, You're
Okay.
doing something, and the moment you take the pen in hand to paper, and I highly recommend it that way, the journaling, and it becomes a way to express oneself, and your brain releases thoughts, and you can write anything you want down. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be about the book. It can be about any topic. If you say you're starting a book and a thought process of an idea of a book, you can start there. But if you get a totally different one, you just start a separate book, and you can have several books going at the same time. But I knew when I was interviewed by some people helped me. They said, "What can you do? What do you know?" And I go, "Well, I know a lot of stuff." And but I said, "I can always get a job." So hence, how to get a job you love. And my very first story, though, won a little prize. I was called, The Perfect Job, and I'd entered this contest and won a prize for it.
That's
But
awesome. Yeah.
it was awesome. It was great fun. So what I say to everyone is actually, if you thought about writing your life story and your work that you did and what you did in your life and participated, you'd be amazed at yourself because you've done a lot.
Yeah.
Most people say, "Oh, I don't have anything to say," or I don't know anything. Yes, you do.
Yes.
You know a
Exactly.
lot.
Yeah.
And if it's even one tiny little thing, expand on that, and then you will get to know yourself if you start journaling. I just can't recommend it highly enough. Julia Cameron is an author to look at. She has many, many, many books. And she wrote about journaling and writing, and she calls it the daily pages. And she says, give yourself a certain amount of time, pen to
Yeah.
paper, and do at least 3 pages. I'll have to
Wow.
write big to do that, but it will get easier and easier and easier. And you literally, and I'm not exaggerating, you can write a book in a month, because if a person wrote an hour a day, that's a lot of words.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And publishing is nothing like it used to be. Now you can do your own print on demand. You can do it through, so many ways to get your books published. You can do ebooks, and I encourage everyone to write a book. Everyone, really and truly, because if here's, I know I'm going on a bit here about this, but so the publisher that helped me said one of his clients wrote a book on marketing. And the
Mm-hmm.
next time she went to get a job, Ann,
Mm-hmm.
it was for the 2010 Olympics as a
Wow.
marketing manager. And they said, well, why should we hire you? She said, well, I wrote the book on marketing. And they hired her.
Wow.
So what I say to you is, it is the new calling card of today. If you have a book, you have more expertise than the next person. So I highly recommend considering writing your thoughts down.
Yeah.
And even if it was a printed out on a 8.5 by 11 and a little booklet, you
Doesn't
could have
matter.
your own book. It's simple and easy to do. And just contact me if you would like my book, How to Get a Job You Love. I'd love to share it with you so you can see a simple format. They don't have to be, 500 pages. It can be 120 pages. And that's
Right.
actually a perfect size for our starter book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a lot of
But
fun.
it all
So
started with an idea, and
it
and
all starts
you,
with an
yeah,
idea.
those action
So
steps, you did it. Yeah.
the value to the workplace translates to your income potential.
Mhm.
And that kind
Exactly.
of goes along with the book thing is,
Yeah.
what value do you bring?
Right.
And the more you know, especially if it's even if it's a factory job, which
Mhm.
are not bad jobs. If
No,
you
if
know
it's right for your
everything about that
personality and everything,
factory,
yeah,
yeah, then it's gonna increase your income potential
it is.
exponentially. Mhm.
Absolutely.
And so, and what steps how do you help people with their action plan?
Well, you have to ask thousands of questions, and just like you explained with the writing, it's you take a step back and you have to ask yourself, how am I feeling? How's this making me feel? And then what's the fear factor for me? What is
Mhm.
holding me back? What do
Mm.
I got to lose with this? Most people think, oh, they've got everything to lose when they really have virtually nothing, really.
Mhm.
Then your freedom of time management is another key thing, because people say, well, what's going to take too much time to do this? I mean, I don't think when you were starting to write your book, you did do time management because you knew the two times of the day that were really good for you. But you didn't think that, well, maybe you did, that this project, this moving forward, was going to be ever overbearing your responsibilities and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So it's, you really have to decide, and I hope everybody writes down some of these things that we're discussing today, because if you step back and you go, okay, what are my fears? The fear of what? The job, the unknown, what's going to be? Is this going to make me feel better? Those are some of the things. Because if it doesn't make you feel complete inside, it's not going to work. The time management, am I going to have to work long hours? What is the best for me to function here? Some of us are morning people, some are evenings. Some say, I like to work 5 hours a day. That's all I can handle. Some go, I'm a 12-hour girl. It doesn't matter. And who are you going to disappoint? Are you going to disappoint your family, or are you going to disappoint yourself? And who's the most important person here? That's what you really have to think about.
Mm. That's sound advice. What I love about you, Anne, is that being able to reflect back to people what they're saying and what they're doing could be two different things.
Two different
And
things.
by journaling, we can even have one this is a fun way to do it, one page on the left and one page on the right, what you're doing
Right?
now and what you wanna do. And then
Mm-hmm.
you try to figure out, how am I gonna get from one page to the other? And, what would it take? The missing gap between those 2 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, the missing
And that's what
link.
they have you and I here for, because
That's right.
we just fill in those gaps. But it all starts with an idea. And I think your idea of yeah, just like I said, how you're feeling about yourself and the fear of
Mhm,
loss. Those
mhm,
are all emotional based things that keep people from moving forward here. And the fear of
mhm,
the unknown. I can't tell you how many people that I work with that, well, I can't go, I'm scared to go after this job. It sounds so perfect for me, but what if I can't manage teams? What if I
mhm,
fail? I'm like,
mhm.
but what if you don't fail? What is it?
Ooh, juicy. What if you don't fail? What if you succeed? So that might be the opposite. Exactly. What if I fail, but what if I succeed? And how
Yeah.
scary is that?
And some people have the fear of success.
Mhm,
How does
mhm,
success impact your life? Some people say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do it because it'll take too much time away from my children, or
mhm,
I'm going to lose a spouse, or people are going to be mad at me, or something like that."
mhm, mhm.
Really, you're
Right.
just limiting yourself when success
Mhm,
comes right from here, everybody, right from here, and
mhm,
you design your own success. Success might mean making a lot of money for some people, and some it's how you
mhm,
feel inside.
mhm. So
Yeah.
sometimes, Anne, when we're seeking companies or careers, we wanna make sure they have the same values that we do.
Absolutely.
Um, some of times there's benefits, you wanna say that time freedom if you are a mom with kids. Do you want
Hmm.
time freedom? Well, that could be a home-based business, so you could be at home with your kids, right? And then that work balance for people. Some people just really want to do a job and go home and just don't bug me anymore. I just want to be on my own. That might be a regular day job For
Right.
some people, I did meet a lady the other day, and that's what she's doing as a day job because that makes her more comfortable now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's challenging to be your best. Again, I don't know how many lives we're each going to live, but right now I'm working on this one.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
So, this inner work that we're talking about with the journaling, this is again both sides of ourselves. We want to check in with our happiness level. Are we in alignment with what we're doing? What kind of do we wake up juicy and excited about the day? Do we end the evening satisfied with the day? Did we get some joy and pleasure and actually inner peace?
Yeah.
You know, and then are we energized and have vitality in that day? We want all of it.
Yep.
And yes, we're going to have highs and lows in every day. But if you have, this is what I learned, you have more of what you want and less of what you don't want.
Right.
But if you find your job brings you more of what you don't want and very little of what you want, that's when that shift, you can shift it. You
Yeah.
can shift it. Yeah.
It's true. It's
And
true.
then, oh yeah, back to the consequences. If you just decide oh no, it's just too much work,
Yeah.
you can end up stuck and sad and literally making yourself sick. I
Yeah.
work with a lot of people that have made themselves sick.
Yep.
No hope for the future. You got that emotional roller coaster going on. Here's something. It becomes a habit of feeling bad.
Yep.
It's
And what does that
literally
morph into? That morphs
ugh,
into the
depression.
victim role too.
Yeah,
It's all like a
depression.
smorgasbord of
Oh, I know.
disaster. It really is.
So yeah, Anne and I love this one. Become a plum, poor little unhappy me.
Yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy,
I
oh
hear it
boy.
all the time. I hear it all the time. And I'm like, you can do something to change that, but they're not ready.
Yeah.
And you have
So
to be ready. Yeah.
yeah. Um, what did you find out about this conversation? We'd love to know.
Mm,
We'd love to connect with you and find out more about your thought patterns and your behaviors. We're here for you. And you can talk to us together, you can talk to us individually. We'd love to be there for you, just as holding space for you, get to know you. And if you'd like, you can work with us. We love to do that for people. It gives us joy. I know it gives me joy,
yeah.
and I know it gives
Absolutely.
you joy, Anne.
Yeah.
And next week, we're going to continue this journey uh, on Mondays generally. And what we'd like to do is just contact us. We are part of the network that you're looking for to help you find what you've longed for so long, and that your life can be different, especially when there's people like ourselves that they're literally cheering you on, and we want the best that you want.
Right.
And but we're here to help that thought process go on.
Absolutely.
So
And don't you they deserve that, Bonnie? Everyone
absolutely.
deserves this.
Hmm.
So start making your plan B. We're expecting
Hmm.
to hear from all of you. We want to
Hmm.
hear your thoughts because you're part of what makes us great. So keep them coming.
Exactly, exactly. And so we do offer our complimentary 30 minutes for you. So that's a fun thing to know. Write it down. And then we just want to thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it, and invite someone you know that's ready for their best life in 2023.
Right. The more the merrier because then you bounce off ideas and things like that. And that's what it all boils down to is networking. So
It,
we're looking
it
forward to seeing
does.
everybody next week.
Yes. Thank you, Anne, so much. I
Well,
always
thank you,
learn from
Bonnie.
you as well.
I do
And
learn
thank you
every
for
time.
your service for the military servicemen and
Yeah,
women.
thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.